Welcome to yet another episode on the platform of Alphos e-learning. Today we discuss a prose lesson for the senior intermediate students. Here I am, Jose Madan Paul, lecturer in English, Alphos Educational Institutions. Welcome to this wonderful lesson given in your prose for senior English intermediate. The third lesson in the prose part, titled To Serve with Love. To serve with love. Students, think of your favorite teacher. Maybe a flashback to your school days, maybe your higher classes, or maybe the elementary classes. Your favorite teacher. What were the qualities, or what are the qualities that you find in your teacher? What can you recall? You would have much impression on his professional expertise, or maybe his mastery over the subject. But students, do you remember any one of your teachers who had really some kind of empathy towards students, trying to share the feelings and emotions of students? We may not find many students. If at all a teacher is there, no doubt such a teacher will be your role model. So the title here is very impressive and may make you recall your role model teacher or the model teacher, favorite teacher you have. To serve with love. Students, this is an episode taken from the famous autobiographical novel, which was written by Ricardo Braithwaite. Ricardo Braithwaite, a famous personality, born in South America and then was a novelist. He was a diplomat. He worked as a teacher, and then he started working in an oil refinery. You know, children, his parents were highly educated. His childhood was really under the good guidance of his educated parents, and that helped him to get quality and better education in his future too. He was educated in New York, America, and Cambridge University in England. Later, Braithwaite, an engineer, started working in oil refinery. Before Second World War, he came to Britain. During the Second World War, he worked as a pilot in British Royal Air Force, RAF. British Royal Air Force. But after the Second World War, one of the darkest stages in this famous personality. Though he was highly qualified, he could not find a job. Unable to find a job because of the racism, he was on the streets. Finally, he discussed his pathetic condition, difficult situation with a stranger, and thus he takes a decision. Though highly qualified, he takes a decision to join a private school, in a secondary school in East End, London. He took to teaching in a secondary school in East End, London. Students, as I told you, this is a very noted autobiographical novel. by E.R. Braithwaite that was published in 1959. Later, this novel was made to film in the year 1967. Still I remember that title song. Sometimes I listen to the title song of the film, To Serve with Love, was #1 hit those days. Students, today we discuss this particular extract given in our senior Inder textbook about this particular writer, E.R. Braithwaite, titled To Serve with Love. Children, after he took to teaching, he faced a lot of difficulties. Those were days of racism, and he was a black teacher. His students, when he entered the new secondary school in East End, London, the students, they were indifferent, they were ill-bred, they were unmotivated, they were unresponsive. Because of this, he could not become successful in some way in the initial days. He did not know what to do, how to master these students. He was highly discouraged. Their attitude towards the teacher discouraged him, demoralized him with disruptive noises in the classroom. Really, it was a challenge for a teacher, a challenge those days. For a black teacher to enter the classroom was really a challenge. But students, he somehow won over that challenge. He took efforts and he wanted to bring a change in the students. He wanted to bring a change in the students. To tell the fact, finally, he won the hearts of students. He won the hearts of students. He won the trust of students. Thus, he became a successful teacher, bringing a change in the attitude of students. This is why this novel has become world famous, and this film also is world famous today. So, as the title suggests, it was not very easy for a student those days during the time of racist discrimination or racism. It was very difficult for a black teacher to be successful in the classroom. Highly educated man, having education from Cambridge University, from New York, an engineer, how he suffered under these nonsense of the students. First day he goes to the classroom. It was secondary school. The top class I mean, within 5 or 6 months, those students will come out of the school and they will take to their means of living. The response of the students was very cold. Not simply cold, children. The response of the students, good God, really demoralized him, discouraged him, making all disruptive noises in the class. Now, our extract in the textbook begins from the second day. The next morning, the second day, children. The next morning, E.R. Braithwaite, as the new teacher, went to the school. There was nothing clear-cut in his mind. He did not know where to begin and what to teach to the students. All the way to the school, he was thinking, how shall I deal with the students today in the class? Assembly went on. After the assembly, students all gathered in the classrooms, and when the students were almost settled in the classroom, teacher enters the class. He looks around for a while. Students were almost quiet. Nothing was very clear-cut in his mind. Merely speculative, merely a guess. That's all what he had. As the students were all silent, he started. He started. Students, I am your teacher. As I am your teacher, it is my duty to make you know what my plans are for this class. You must know my plans. Yes, we are going to talk now. You and I, students and teacher. But one thing, the talk should not be irrelevant. It should be reasonable. On reasonable issues, let us talk. We will talk with each other. And when I talk, I want you to listen without interrupting me. Till I complete, you should silently listen to me as well. You should not interrupt me in between. And as I conclude, I will give you the chance, I will give you the opportunity to speak out, and I will be a good listener to you then. After telling this for a while, teacher looked around towards the faces. Yes, students were sitting very calm and quiet and really interested in his talk. All were really interested in his talk, because what he expected is, if at all students were deaf to his words, it would be better I would drop off. But nothing as such happened. All were really interested. Even that rough student, the rogue in the class, Senham. See, even Senham, he was leaning forward on the desk, listening to the teacher. This made the teacher continue his talk. Naturally, children, in the class, when students are really interested in the talk, in the lecture, teachers will put their 100% effort. If the student's response is negative, not encouraging, naturally, teacher would drop. The same here, even Senham was leaning forward on the desk and listening to E.R. Braithwaite, the teacher. So he continued. Students, my business here is to teach you. And I will try my level best to make my teaching as interesting as possible to you. It's my duty, bounden duty, that I will try to make you understand my lesson. At the same time, I do not want you to disturb me, interrupt me while I teach. And when I teach things, if any one of you do not agree with what I teach, or if you cannot understand what I teach, certainly I would be happy if you would let me know what you do not understand, or let me know what you do not agree to. I'll be pleased to accept what you suggest, what you want to know. This is how he continued. Students, most of you, it was a secondary school, I told you. Most of you, in 6 months or so, you will leave the school. You will leave the school and embark on the very business of earning a living. Start the very business of earning a living. Yes, students, this is true. In European countries, or in Britain or America or such countries, we find this kind of scenario. This scenario is there. Students, when they grow up to 15 or 18, they take to some part-time job to find their means of living, and they do not completely depend on their parents. unlike in India, because in India we do not find this kind of atmosphere. Parents do not want students, however poor there may be, however difficulty they may be facing, they do not want their children to do any work while they learn. But in other countries, what we find is learn and work both go simultaneously. Work and learn both go simultaneously. So here also he is stressing that point. Within 6 months or so, you will leave the school and you will embark on the very business of earning a living. So what I want to say, I do not want to treat you as children. You are no more children. You are young men and young women. Hereafter, as a teacher, I will treat you as young men and women. And when I start treating you as young men and women, students, you too must treat each other as young men and women. And as we move from childhood to youthhood, certainly I expect some standards of conduct from you, standards of conduct, behavior, character from you. When there is a transition from childhood to youthhood, many of the childhood activities and immaturity of mind must be dropped, must be given up, and you must act rather in a mature way. And I expect certain standards from you. This was how he continued in the class. My God, look at the students, how they were listening to in the early morning. The same students who were very insolent, very rude the previous day, today with both their ears sharpened, with their eyes wide open, listening to the talk of the teacher. See children, this is how E.R. Braithwaite took the challenge and was transforming the children, reforming the children, changing the attitude of the children. This is what happens in the class if the teacher really bases on the improvement or change of students even in their conduct, even in their behavior and nature. Yes, as he was continuing the class, at that moment, the door was flung open, quick open. And a student, a girl, Pamela Dare, what is her name? Pamela Dare rushed in. Good God, rather insolently, rudely. The door was flung open and she rushed in almost breathlessly. Can you tell the reason, children? Yes, she was very late. Sweating, with the bag, with the books, she rushed in without minding anything or anyone and rushed to her seat. For a while, all the eyes were towards Pamela Dare. She was almost breathless, panting. Just now, E.R. Braithwaite is talking about the manners, courtesy and deportment students must follow in their life, in the classroom. But that is what happened. Pamela rushed into the class. All of a sudden, E.R. Braithwaite changed the track of speaking, the line of his talk. For example, he continued, there are two ways that one can enter a classroom. There are two ways that one can enter a room. First one is already demonstrated by our Pamela Dare, rushing rather insolently, rudely as if someone planted a feet on the back and pushed from back, as if someone planted a feet on the back. That was already demonstrated. That method was already demonstrated by Pamela Dare. All students were now staring at Pamela. Pamela was really sweating. And the second way is entering a classroom slowly in a mannered manner, as if a queen enters a room. As if a queen enters a room. Dignified manner, in a slow manner, in a polite manner, entering the classroom. Yes. Now, I'm sure Pamela Dare already showed us the first way. Now, Dare will certainly demonstrate the second way of entering a room. Come on, Miss Dare, Miss Pamela. The second way. He appealed to Pamela Dare to demonstrate the second way of entering the classroom. All eyes were towards Pamela Dare. She was rather blushing, sitting there, embarrassed. Her eyes became black with anger and humiliation. Her eyes turned black with anger and humiliation. It was really a challenge for Pamela, whether she would stand up, whether she would walk out, and whether she would open the door quietly like a queen, and whether she would come to her seat in a very polite manner, slowly, as a queen enters a room. This was a moment of challenge. All were looking towards Pamela. Will she accept the challenge or not? There was a doubt, a misgiving in E.R. Braithwaite's mind also. At that moment, Miss Dare stood up, walked out, and then in a few seconds, she opened the door quietly, and like a queen, she entered and sat in her seat. Thank you, Miss Dare. Thank you. The teacher did not forget to thank Pamela Dare. Stop. Students, as from today, there are certain courtesies with which we will be observing all the time in our classroom. Certain courtesies in the classroom. Myself, you can address us Mr. Braithwaite or Sir. And, okay, choice is yours. If you want to address me as Mr. Braithwaite, it's up to you, or Sir. Students, see, in foreign countries, especially in America, England, all these countries, we find adding Mr. at the beginning is a word of respect. Haven't you listened to? People always address American president as Mr. President. Whereas in India, in Indian scenario, this does not work out. Okay? So here it is. Even a teacher is addressed just Mr. prior to his name. Mr. Braithwaite or Sir. The choice is yours. And young ladies will be addressed hereafter as Miss. Young ladies will be addressed hereafter as Miss. And then young men will be addressed by their surnames. Young men will be addressed by their surnames, and young ladies addressed as Miss. Really, Braithwaite hadn't planned any of this talk really. It was unfolding by itself. It was coming out from him by itself. And he hoped at the very moment students do not grasp him, he thought he would drop it. He thought he would drop it. And as he was telling the way of addressing as Miss and young men by surnames, there was a general gasp at this, a general murmur among the students at this, both from boys and girls alike. And one of the students stood up. Sir, it was Potter, a student named Potter. Yes, Potter? What is it? What do you want to say? Why should we call them Miss? We know them. This was what he said. Why should we call them? Why should we call women, young women, Miss? We know them. Braithwaite asked, what is your name? Potter. I beg your pardon? Potter, sir. See, sir came very delayed, somewhat delayed. He did not say, Potter, sir. Potter, sir. Students, see, the change that is gradually evolving in the minds of students. The precious words of the teacher has really changed the attitude. Within seconds, within minutes, you have seen the change. The rogues-like student, especially this particular student, Potter, first he said the matter without addressing sir. In fact, when Potter raised the question, Mr. Braithwaite understood the matter, but he wantedly tells him, I beg your pardon? Because he wanted the student to pick up the addressing word. Which word? Sir. And when the addressing word sir came out, though delayed from his mouth, Braithwaite understood that the students were gradually grasping the things. Thank you, Potter. Now, is there any young lady present here who do not deserve to be called Miss? Sir? Potter did not understand, could not comprehend what Braithwaite was trying to say. Sir? He repeated, is there any young woman here whom you think do not deserve to be called Miss? Students, did you understand the meaning of his question? Is there any young woman in the class who does not deserve to be called Miss? Meaning, any young woman who is not a Miss but a Mrs. Married. When this question was asked, all the girls in the class with one accord, all together at a time, turned towards Mr. Potter and stared at him. Stared at him with wide open eyes. They stared at him. This made Potter quail, visibly quail before the looks of these girls or women. So quailing, visibly he was quailing. He said, no sir. See, this time sir comes very smoothly, children. Potter, you should remember that in a little while all of you are going to earn the business of living. All of you are going to be a part of your jobs. You are expected to go out, leave the school and earn your business of living. And as you step out into the society where you work, all these courtesies that you learn today here will be a part of your jobs also. It would be helpful to you to become accustomed to, habituated to giving respect and receiving respect. When you give respect to others, they will also return or you will receive respect. Here, is the platform. This classroom is the platform. This school is the platform where you can nurture, where you can get accustomed to these courtesies which later in life you would follow in future in your job places or wherever you work. After telling this, for a while he walked around the desk and then sat on his chair and observed the students. For the time being, it was very clear that the students really understood. They were really listening to him, and they really understood the importance of the words he was trying to tell. Though they could not understand everything, at least they understood something, and they even began to change their attitude, as we saw in the attitude of Potter addressing Braithwaite as Sir.